currently teach at the Indian Institute for Human Settlements in Bangalore. I live in Bangalore because my job is currently in Bangalore. I live between Bangalore and London. My family is also in London. I'm originally from Kerala, from Palakkad, the foothills of the Western Ghats. In fact, one of my friends asked me where I'm going, and I said I'm going to Dodin, which is in Hyderabad. It's run by the Hyderabad Urban Lab. And I was thinking how to name it because the person does not know Hyderabad Urban Lab. And then I named it, I said this is like an urban think festival where people come across from different parts of the South India broadly, also from Hyderabad, and across professions and across disciplines and across practices like activists, entrepreneurs, innovators, planners and so on. And to think collectively about key issues that the organizers have proposed to think. And in thinking those events, it actually spreads far and wider than the scope of a particular subject or the problem that is discussed. And so to me, it is a hugely interesting event where I meet a large number of people, know what they think, interact with them. I met entrepreneurs, I met someone who tries to put together a water harvesting system in Hyderabad. I met students. I met people who are artists, thinkers, designers. So city as a common place where everybody lives, urbanism as a common practice in which we all organize our life nowadays in cities or even outside cities. Urbanism has moved beyond cities anymore. So it's a great opportunity to meet people and to share ideas and to also meet friends. It does, yeah. And why do I say that? It is also because in my work, I work on practices of planning or practices of urban transformation. So there are a wide range of professional practices like planners, urban designers, architects, transport planners, you name all of them, who give consulting to government. There are government officers who runs organizations from IAS officers to engineers to overseers to all kinds of people, yeah. And then there are business organizations who would like the city or who would like the urban space to be organized in a certain way so that their businesses runs well and so on. There are people who are interested in public transformation, who are activists, but all of them do their own practices. But the key here is, and that is something I saw in Dodin, is that it's an event which brings people together to think collectively. Doesn't necessarily have to agree, but push one's own boundaries and get bothered by or inspired by and so on through this event. And the fact that in my work I have understood or I have kind of at a place where I think transformation of our cities or humanizing of our cities, that's how I would say. Transformation is the wrong word, I think. Humanizing our cities is going to be in fact in the hands of everyday people. So the more and more people get involved in understanding what causes the discomfort from traffic to lack of water to divisions between social world, housing, ghettoization, housing poverty, economic poverty, all of that. The more and more people can understand this, they get inspired by new ideas, get bothered by the real conditions. Events like Dodin are an extremely important place on that public communication. I didn't mean public communication in a narrow way, but in a larger way. Yeah, and that's very, very important. It's people who are going to humanize the cities, not necessarily authorities. It's amazing. It was a very interesting event. As panel discussions, one feedback I would probably think about would be to mix it. Yesterday I really enjoyed the Urdu city and the language session, poetry. I would be more inspired by more such events which would connect all that which we were talking about commons yesterday. I was in a panel on urban commons. What is more common than language? Language is something that binds a lot of people. Language is one of the very important commons. So, thinking about language, use of language to poetry, thinking about use of language to think about or inspire sensibilities is a hugely important event. So there were a lot of events like on transport, on commons, on wetlands, on all of that, but I would suggest to intersperse it with events that are also cultural, understanding the city, language, poetry, literature, art. There's a lot of art installation around. That's quite nice. I would love also to see those art installations as integral part of the event. Very interesting. When you this is a comment I got from Madurai during my field work in 2013. We were studying the wetlands in Madurai, what we call blue infrastructure. When we call blue infrastructure, unlike the kind of sector-based work that we are used to do, like water and sanitation, different from wetlands, different from drainage, etc. In Indian cities, you see that all of this is integrated. That means if you have to study the water ecology in Indian cities, you cannot distinguish them from the confluence from which these water infrastructures are made, wetland infrastructure. That is the wastewater, the drainage, the sewage, the rain, the groundwater, the lakes and wetlands, all of that is combined. So we were trying to understand what we called, and as a language, as a vocabulary, we called it blue infrastructure. It was a project we did with, I was part of the University College London then. So we were trying to understand how these everyday disasters are being made. Yeah? There are mega disasters or mega threats like cyclone, this, that and the other, which we have very little control of. But then we make an everyday disaster of our city by continuously making our own habitat inhabitable. So we were trying to understand how are they made, and in that context I had this interview with this one person who lives next to what used to be called Kridumal River in Madurai, which is currently a sewage canal like the Kuam in Chennai, for instance. And so she said 35 years ago when she came there, she was older, she was 60 or something. So she said 35 years ago when they came there first to settle in the slum just next to the river, there was clean air, clean water, there were no house. Obviously house was a shack. There were no amenities. But 35 years after, what she says is she has a house which is regularized now. There is a washing machine, there is fan, there is electricity, there is all comforts of a modest modern home, but she can neither sleep outside nor sleep inside. So, to answer your question, well-being is a very fundamental lens through which we should understand current urban transformation in India. Quality of life is not dependent necessarily on the material procurements that we do. It's not necessarily dependent on the discourse of what is social mobility, etc. More and more we see that, we were talking earlier that well-being is so much dependent on the quality of the public space as much as it is on the private space. So the more and more private wealth is increasing in the last 2 decades in India, but the more and more public space is completely uninhabitable. Commons are damaged. So I think it's a very, very, very important question, and it's one of the political questions of our times, I would say that. Quality of life or well-being.